Hi, it's Michael Trigg here with a video critique of the head of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. Now this is an absolutely masterful performance, and I'm just going to play the first part of it and make some comments for you because she does almost everything perfectly. And there's a lot we can learn from it, I think. First of all, she gives the most gracious reply to the welcome and thank you from David Dimbleby. See what you think.
Good evening to all of you. It is a great honour to be invited to deliver this year's Dimbleby lecture, and I would like to thank the BBC and the Dimbleby family for so kindly inviting me, especially you, David, for your very kind words of introduction. You didn't forget anything, including the synchronized swimming.
I just think that's lovely, particularly the personal reference to David Dimbleby, who is obviously lapping it up, and a little tilt of the head, softening of the voice, and then she goes straight into the subject. But she does something really interesting. She tells us what she's going to talk about, it's the future, but she immediately loops back.
Now this evening what I would like to do is talk to you a little bit about the future. But before looking ahead, however, I would like to look back. For the clues of the future can often be read from the tea leaves of the past.
That was just beautiful. What a simple little analogy. Look at the intent, look on the face of the head of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. And also, listen to the way she uses her voice throughout. I hope I won't refer to this too often, but I might bring it up because it is so good. Her pace is varied, her pitch is varied. She uses lots of pauses, and you may have noticed a nice big pause there just before I stop the recording, so that it hangs in the air. And she's going to do something very interesting too.
So I invite you to cast your minds back to the early month of 1914. Exactly.
Now that's a very interesting device, because she's inviting us first of all. It's a lovely expression, so I invite you. But think about it, there's nobody in that audience, and probably nobody watching this critique, who was alive in 1914. So physically we cannot cast our minds back then, but she's inviting us to do so as if we were. And we're all going along with it.
A century ago. Much of the world had enjoyed long years of peace, and giant leaps in scientific and technological innovation had led to path-breaking advances in living standards and communications. There were few barriers to trade, travel, or the movement of capital. The future was full of potential. 1914.
Lovely. Getting quite racy earlier on. There was this happening, that happening, etc. Prosperity. Then 1914.
1914 was the gateway to 30 years of disaster, marked by 2 World Wars and the Great Depression. It was the year when everything started to go wrong. So what happened?
Love the way she poses that question. Having painted a dramatic picture, then what happened? And a nice long 2-second pause as she does so. It's like an announcement.
What happened was that the birth of the modern industrial society brought about massive dislocation. The world was rife with tension, rivalry between nations, upsetting the traditional balance of power and inequality between the haves and the have-nots, whether in the form of colonialism or the sunken prospects of the uneducated working classes. Technology, instead of uplifting the human spirit, was deployed for destruction and terror.
Nice little contrast there. Instead of up, then down.
Early attempts at international cooperation, such as the Société des Nations, fell flat. By the end of the Second World War, large parts of the world lay in ruins.
Now, not only do we have a lovely pause, but she's going to invite us again. And she does something very interesting here. She could have just given us a simple little fact and a name, but she tells a story, and she builds our anticipation through it.
I now invite you to consider a second turning point. 1944. In the summer of that year, the eminent economist John Maynard Keynes and a delegation of British officials embarked on a fateful journey across the Atlantic. The crossing was risky. The sea was rough. The world was still at war and enemy ships still prowled the waters. Keynes himself was not in good health. But he had an appointment with destiny, and he did not want to miss that.
How effective is that? Rather than just saying Maynard Keynes went across the Atlantic in 1944, she builds a lovely story around it. It's not over the top, it just draws us in.
His destination was the small town of Bretton Woods in the hills of New Hampshire in the northeast of the United States.
Again, she sets the context. It's not grand, but it's very descriptive.
His purpose was to meet with his counterparts from other countries. Their plan was nothing less than the reconstruction of the global economic order. Those 44 nations gathering at Bretton Woods were determined to set a new course based on mutual trust and cooperation, on the principle that peace and prosperity flow from the font of cooperation, on the belief that broad global interest trumps narrow self-interest.
That's a lovely phrase. And again, I said I wouldn't refer to it, but I can't resist it. Notice her variety in her talk. Not only how crystal clear her diction is, but her variety in pace, her variety in pitch, and her very generous and effective use of pauses.
This was the original multilateral moment, 70 years ago. And it gave birth to the United Nations, to the World Bank, to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the institution that I'm proud to lead. The world we inherited was forged by these visionary gentlemen, Lord Keynes and his colleagues, men from his generation. They raised the phoenix of peace and prosperity from the ashes of anguish and antagonism.
I could play this for ages, because she's such a consummate presenter. And you may say, as earlier commented on in the David Dimbleby critique, maybe, well, she's head of the IMF, she should be able to do this. Well, there's an awful lot of people in very high positions who do not present well. But this woman is an absolute master or mistress of presenting. And I think she's an example to us all. I hope you enjoyed this. Do leave your comments underneath and subscribe to the channel where I'll be sending you some more critiques of well-known figures. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.